ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. The story of human race is a fascinating tale of dark and light, ups and downs, triumphs and challenges, war and peace. And it never ends, never stops. We find ourselves in the year 2020, our lives appended, completely changed by a global infectious disease pandemic that we call COVID-19. Every single speck of creation on this planet has been impacted. And for this reason, the Sikh Arts and Film Festival for the first time is coming to you virtually. Thanks to technology that we can do that. Sikhlands Festival is based out of Southern California. I'm based out of New York City, and you, the audience, are making this festival go global for the first time. Something we didn't plan on, but that's just how it happened. It is my incredible pleasure and honor to be the keynote speaker for this year's Sikhlands Festival. It is a double honor for me to be the illustrator for the art that is going to be gracing the pages of the Sikhlands calendar for the year 2021. Sikhlands and Chapman University have come together in this really amazing relationship in the past 20 years. Basically, the entire 21st century, the young century, and they've created this amazing talent pool of storytellers. And to me, I see this effort, this relationship as a garden. Sikhlands Festival offers tools and seed full of ideas to a group of creative gardeners. These creative gardeners are filmmakers, storytellers, artists, and these gardeners, they come up with a seed full of ideas. They drop these seeds in the garden and they wait for them to, they just see what happens. They sprout. And while these seeds sprout, who gets to support this festival, this garden? There's a lot of people. The Chapman University Dodd School of Film and Media Arts, the Sikhlands Foundation, its board of trustees, its staff, its volunteers, its founders. Special thanks to Mindy and Ray. And most importantly, you, the audience, the fans, the supporters, the donors. And in the last many years that Sikhlands has been happening, it has led to an amazing medley, colorful medley of films and art that is having a global impact. I happen to be an artist whose story found home in the Sikhlands Festival and the Sikhlands Garden. In the year 2014, 3 young graduates from Chapman University, with the support of Sikhlands Festival, decided they wanted to capture my story, my performance art story. So they flew from Southern California to New York, and they spent a few days with me. They came to my home with camera and recordings and everything, and we traveled up and down New York City on the subway by foot, and they released a film many months down the line, a lot of hard work. In January 2015, online, they decided they're not going to go to the film circuit. They're going to release this film online. It's Sikhlands production. And they called it Red, White, and Beard. And this film got a lot of press coverage, international, national press coverage, and it kind of took a life of its own. And what transpired in a few months after that really kind of changed my life in many ways. That is why I'm sitting here in front of you. Things might be different if that film hadn't been launched. There's a couple of stories I want to share with you. Inspired by this film, there was a teacher, a elementary school teacher in Boston, who created a lesson plan for 3rd graders. This was in a magazine. This is how I found out. This was in a magazine. She created a lesson plan for 3rd graders who were to create superheroes inspired by their own life stories. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. That's really beautiful. Second was a couple that I ran into while shooting this film who saw me twice on a subway on the same day. And they said to me, hey, what's going on? And they learned a little bit about me. The husband emailed me next day, and he basically told me he was visiting New York City for the first time in 13 years. He came here in 2001 after the attacks of 9/11 to give support to the first responders. And now he was back to visit the city, to see Ground Zero, to see a soccer game, just reconnect with the past. And he told me, he emailed me, this is all a story he shared by email a day later. And he said to me, your version of Captain America, Vishavjit, is what my version of Captain America is. And to me, that is the power of storytelling. Story of a Captain America, of a superhero that does not exist, whose uniform I wore connected me to a police officer in Arizona. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our challenge today. How do we get to tell your, my, everybody's story? How do we get to listen to their stories? And by taking up that challenge of creating that space for everybody's stories to be told, we can begin to take the first steps to create a just and equality-based world. It's a big challenge, but it starts with a simple goal. Let's tell our simple stories. My story begins in the city of Washington, D.C., nation's capital. I was born in a hospital barely 2 miles from the White House. I spent the first 4 years in Washington, D.C. with my parents. My parents are from India. They decided they wanted to move back to India. They had some personal reasons. I moved back with them. I spent my childhood in India. I had a childhood, pretty loving parents, but I got bullied a lot in school out on the streets of Delhi. I spent a lot of my summers in Punjab, my parents' native state. I survived a genocidal massacre of Sikhs in 1984 in the first week of November. We had a mob that came to our house. A lot of Sikhs were hunted down. We were lucky. We survived, but many were not lucky. Thousands perished. And a few years down the line, I moved back to the land of my birth. And I was planning to go to college, getting ready to go to college. And I was greeted on the streets of Los Angeles by many strangers who did not bother to know my story, did not ask for my story, but they judged me based on what I looked like, my turban at the time, a little sprouting beard, and they told me to go back home. They laughed in my face. They called me names. And I started having this identity crisis. Who was I? Was I American? Was I Sikh? Why am I wearing a turban and beard? I didn't have good answers to these questions. I grew up in a family that looked Sikh, but my parents were not really practicing Sikhs. I mean, well, at the time I didn't know. I just thought, hey, you're just a Sikh just because you look like one. You have a name that identifies you as Sikh. You call yourself a Sikh, you're a Sikh. And all of these questions by second year in college kind of led me down a path where I decided to take off my turban, shave my beard off. And I said, look, I need to find my place. I need to define my place in society and find who I am. And what became my guide in this process is something I like to call time machine. I discovered a time machine that allowed me to travel across time, to go into spaces that I have existed in the past, spaces in the future, spaces that have never existed. And this is a time machine that actually all of us have access to. And I know you're probably thinking, okay, Vishavjit, what are you talking about? Time machine, they don't exist. Well, they do. Books. Books are time machines. A good book, a good story can allow you to travel across space and time, can impact you in ways you cannot fathom. I, through books, discovered a story of a man 100 years ago, who lived 100 years ago, named Siddhartha. Many of us know him as Buddha today, but the story of Siddhartha is amazing. And I was like, wow, this is a cool story. This is a cool human being. And from that story, I read more. I started practicing Buddhist meditations. I did Taoist meditations. And eventually, by the time I'm in grad school, I decided. I actually spent a few months with my brother who was really into the Sikh faith. He was listening to a lot of Sikh hymns, which we call Gurbani and Kirtan. And I listened to some of that Gurbani. I listened to some of this poetic words put together in a musical form, ragas. And I fell in love with Kirtan. I fell in love with this poetry. And I decided for the first time in my life, I am going to follow the path of Sikhi, the path of Sikh. And it took me a couple of years to grow my hair long. And by the time I had long enough hair to put a bun on top of my head, to tie this turban, to have this long beard, the year was 2001, the month was August. I was living and working very close to New York City at the time. And we all know what happened a month later, the tragic attacks of 9/11. And that changed my life. in ways that I could not fathom again. Once again, I was now, for most Americans, somebody who did not belong here. People told me, good people from all walks of life, go back home. You don't belong here. Call me all kinds of names. And that went on for a long time. Even now, there are days when people tell me who don't know my story, go back home. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, what do I do with this? How do I deal with people's ignorance? Maybe bigotry, maybe intolerance. And what came to my rescue, again, was something very unique, a cartoon that captured my predicament in lines and words with turban and beard. And I said, wow, this is really cool. It took me a few weeks to figure this out, but I'm thinking, you know what? I am going to use the art of cartooning to tell my story and story of others who look like me. So I started cartooning in the year 2002. And I started a website called sicktoons.com. I changed cartoons to sick, called it Sicktoons. And I have two rules. One, I'm going to create characters who look like me, who look like my parents, who look like family and friends. Second, I'm going to tell their story, be it they're based in the US, Canada, Europe, Asia. I'm going to tell their stories. And I started doing that. And years down the line, I decided in the year 2011, I'm going to go to the New York City Comic Festival, one of the biggest festivals on the planet. And I'm going to take my sick art, I'm going to showcase it, I'm going to sell it. And I was thinking, okay, how do I stand out in this big comic festival? What do I create to attract attention? And that year, the first Captain America movie had come out. And I had seen the poster, and I'm thinking in my head, you know what? I should create a Captain America with a turban and beard. And that Captain America is going to fight hate and intolerance. So I created a poster, big poster, and I took it to the festival, and I put it on as a banner, and lo and behold, for the 3 days I was there, something weird and magical happened. People kind of got confused. They're like, what is that? Why does Captain America have a turban and beard? That's cool, but why is Captain America Muslim? And I said, well, this Captain America is sick. Captain America can be Muslim. And it started conversations. I had a photographer who eventually became a friend of mine, a Jewish Brazilian-American photographer, who said to me, Vishavjit, you should come back next year dressed up as Captain America. And I said, nope, I don't think so. And I knew my reasons for that. I've been bullied all my life. I've survived a genocide. I've survived through 9/11. I've been told by many people all my life, you don't belong here. Go back home, wherever that home is. Why would I wear a leotard, skin-tight uniform of a comic superhero and even attract more attention on me? It took Fiona, the photographer, a year to convince me. Finally, in 2013, June 2013, I donned that uniform, really nervous, really anxious, step out on the streets of New York, and it's like I've entered a parallel universe. People hugged me, embraced me, took photos of me, followed me. Police officers took photos of me. I got access to a fire department truck. I got pulled into weddings. For those 8-9 hours, I was like in a parallel universe where people saw me with a fresh pair of eyes and they were just like, whoa, you are an American superhero. And that transformed my life in ways that I didn't realize at the time, because in the coming months and years, I started getting invitations from late night comedy shows, from schools, from festivals, people saying, hey, we would like you to come and share your story, and please don your uniform. I have been to Washington, D.C. I've been to the Capitol, to the halls of political power. I've been to the Republican National Convention in 2016 in Cleveland. I have been to schools and companies sharing my story in this uniform. And, it's been an amazing, strange, weird journey, which eventually a few years ago led me to decide I'm going to give up my career as an engineer. I'm going to transition to have a full-time career as a storyteller, as a diversity speaker, as an artist, as an illustrator, as a cartoonist. And for the past few years, I've been traveling across the US, going to schools, museums, festivals, private companies, government agencies, nonprofit agencies. I've had the honor and pleasure of going to NASA. I've visited companies like Google and Apple, and public schools, private schools, and I'm sharing my story through cartoons, but I'm connecting that stories to other people's stories Our plots are all connected. And I am dropping seeds of everyone on this planet being able to tell their stories and listen to each other's stories. That's my main vision and mission. And one of the stories that has been my guide for my entire life, that I heard when I was a young kid, and I've heard it many times since, and I want to quickly share with you, is the story of Bhai Kanhaiya. Bhai Kanhaiya was a Sikh who lived in the time of the 10th master, the 10th Guru of Sikhs, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, in the 1700s. And so the story goes, there's a battle happening. Guru Gobind Singh and his Sikhs are fighting an army of the ruler of the time who had attacked Sikhs. And so this battle is happening. And there's a lull in this battle. A lot of people are injured and killed. And in that period, as people are sort of, these armies are taking, stock of their losses and what needs to happen next, Bhai Kanhaiya is taking this bag full of water and he's going and he's tending to the injured. He's providing care to the injured. And the Sikh soldiers saw Bhai Kanhaiya give water to Sikh soldiers and to the enemy soldiers. They complained to Guru Gobind Singh Ji, Bhai Kanhaiya is doing this. He's giving water to the enemy. He's giving support to the enemy. Guru Gobind Singh said, okay, let me find out what's happening. He called for Bhai Kanhaiya. Bhai Kanhaiya comes to him and said, Bhai Kanhaiya, this is what I'm hearing. Is that true? He's like, yes, it is true. He said, why are you giving water to the enemy soldiers? He said, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, I see the light that you talk about, this force that permeates the entire universe that you talk about. I see that in everyone. I see that in you, in the Sikhs, fellow Sikhs, and I see that in those enemy soldiers. And Guru Gobind Singh said to all the Sikhs at the time, Bhai Kanhaiya has found the secret of life. He is a true Sikh. He's a true student of life. Because he is seeing that light in everyone. And the fact of the matter is, the Sikh faith, this Sikh journey is all about that force that is present in every speck of creation. You have it, I have it. And our goal is to make sure this force that is defined by this first words spoken by Guru Nanak that are in our holy spiritual guide, the Guru Granth Sahib, this energy is described by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the founder of Sikh faith, in the following words. This energy, the Ik Onkar we call it, is timeless, self-creating, fearless, beyond time and space. It's essentially bliss. And you and I need to figure out a way of connecting to the source. It needs to be our North Star. It needs to be our GPS. Let it be your GPS. Remember, you have a unique story, but your story is connected to every other story out there. We need to find a way of sharing, of telling our stories and listening to our stories. Create library full of stories in your physical bodies, in your hearts, in your minds. Just pack it up with stories. In your homes, have books. Just pack it up with stories. And let these stories, over time, transform you and the world. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vishavjit, you have had quite a few twists and turns in your life. You figured out a way to have a creative outlet to challenges thrown your way. Can you have a moving story without dramatic twists and plots?
Absolutely. Yes, you can. Stories do not have to be based upon tragedies or some profound events. Some of the most beautiful stories have been written about a dream or rainfall or sirens hurling in the background. It's the imagination that can make you go, even in a simple story, make you smell things, make you feel things. So yes, you absolutely can have powerful stories that are not rooted in tragedies or profound events.
You talked about Sikhland's Sikh Arts and Film Festival as a garden for sprouting Sikh stories. That is quite the allegory. Do you see many examples of similar efforts in the Sikh world?
Unfortunately, no. I do not see very many examples of Sikh lands at all.
Why not?
Well, it's a complicated reason to get to that answer why we don't see a lot of Sikh lands around the globe. Is you have to know the Sikh story, the Sikh history really well, and I'm not somebody who can claim that I know it very well, but I know quite a bit of it. I'm still learning, and one of the things that I've seen in a history is it's a beautiful history. It's a history that has had a lot of upheavals. Sikhs have a very young history. They've gone through a lot of upheavals. They have rarely had peaceful periods of more than 50 years where societies could flourish and ideas could flourish and arts could flourish. So that's one big reason. But I would also say, in some ways, it's an onus we have to take as a community that we are a community that has a lot of resources, very hardworking, but we have not used our resources to really think in the long term. We don't have long term visions as envisioned by our gurus and many who follow them. I really feel we Sikhs are a very short term, ostentatious bunch who love to sort of create a splash in the short run.
Can you elaborate further about what long term vision you were talking about?
Yeah, so one of the things about Sikhs is we hail from a really beautiful lineage of humility, compassion, and courage. And it's a lineage that's founded on two art forms: poetry and music. That is what the gurus used, and the other sons and who created poetry and set it to ragas. That's Guru Granth Sahib Ji, our spiritual guide today for us. It is not about what our gurus look like. A lot of Sikhs have photos of gurus in their homes. It's really about their life stories, their message, their actions that should be inspiring us. And we struggle to live up to Sikh values. One example is although our gurus emancipated women before Europe emancipated women, today we don't give women a lot of equality. Women do not run most of our gurdwaras; they're run by men, and there's many other examples. So we have long ways to go, and I would. It is not an accident that the Sikh Lens Festival has flourished in a place like Southern California, where we have relative prosperity and peace for Sikhs who live here. But I would say to Sikhs out there who have the means to really think in the long term, to think about creating many more Sikh lenses or similar ideas around the globe, so we can leave uh, um, support structures for the present and the future generations to build upon our stories from the past, present, and the future.
How do we, as Sikhs, especially parents to Sikh children, instill this long term vision and love for art forms?
Back again. There are many ways we can do this, but there's one way that I'm going to share with parents who are listening in, and that is by creating libraries in your homes. Every Sikh home around the globe, depending on your means, can be a simple library, but every Sikh home should have a library. Should have a library. And that library should be full of books in Gurmukhi, in English, in Punjabi, all kinds of languages, all kinds of books, fiction, non-fiction. Expose your kids to knowledge, all kinds of knowledge. To question things is okay. To have doubts is okay. Make sure your kids have libraries at home. You will learn as well. Don't just raise your kids to be doctors and engineers and lawyers, to make money, to have big homes, to have just savings and big homes and cars. Those things are important. But what is important, more important, is to teach them about leadership, about a growth mindset, spiritual growth, personal growth, professional growth, for them to excel in whatever they are good at, whatever their dreams are. They want to be a chef? Go be the best chef out there. You want to be an astronaut? Go shoot for the stars. You want to be a teacher? What a noble profession. You can impact lives. Go do that. You want to be a social worker? What an amazing profession. It's a human service based profession. Everything requires hard work. Inspire them, give them tools to work hard, to excel. And remember, our gurus were artists. So do not just focus on STEM, focus on STEAM. Science, technology, engineering, math. The A is for arts. Our gurus were artists. So allow your kids to follow arts and STEM disciplines. You can engage in all of them. I have through my journey. And you can learn something today, you can learn something else tomorrow. So please grow libraries in your homes.
If you were to have the chance to go back in time and have another chance at this life without the pressure to be a doctor, an engineer, what profession would you choose?
If I got another chance at this life, I would love to be a writer of books, articles. I might work for magazines, I might become a journalist, but I want to be a full-time writer. That would be my vocation. That would be my dream.
You talk about books being that time machine that helped you carve your own journey. What are some of the books that helped you do this?
There are many books, and it's a hard question, but I'll give you a few names. Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, Anthropologist on Mars by Oliver Sacks, Flatland by Edwin Abbott, Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche, and The Gift, Poems by Hafiz by Daniel Ladinsky. Those are the few that come to mind, and there's many more. I want to once again thank Sikh Lens Festival, Chapman University for having me this year as their keynote speaker, as the illustrator for the calendar. What you're doing is having a profound impact today and especially into the future. You're creating filmmakers, directors, so many other artists who might head companies, who might be the head of Netflix or Hulu or Disney and companies we don't even know yet. But they will be telling stories of Sikhs, of the past, of the present, and the future. And that is an amazing gift. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It is an incredible pleasure to be the illustrator for the Sikh Lens calendar for the year 2020-21. The cover art for the calendar is an eye chart that I created in the year 2002 in response to the post 9/11 environment here in the United States and many other places where so many people were judging each other based on their looks, and it extends to how we judge each other based on their backgrounds and religion and race and gender and sexuality and a whole lot of other things. We need to get to know each other's stories. We need to judge each other based on each other's character, our actions, and not the other wonderful diversities that make us special and unique. The art for the month of January is a piece that kind of focuses on a very central theme in the Sikh faith, which is ardas. It's a supplication. It's a communication, a conversation you have with the creator of this universe. And the Sikh faith journey is about merging with this creator energy, but you have a lot of distractions along the way, which are known as Maya, illusions in the Sikh faith. For the month of February, I created an art to commemorate Black History Month and to sort of shift the lens and focus on our internal selves. It's very easy to talk about others who are racist or prejudiced, but we all have the potential to be prejudiced and have biases. And within the Sikh community, especially those of us who hail from the Far East and from the land of the Gurus, unfortunately, many of us have prejudices and stereotypes toward people of darker hue, be it Africans, African Americans, and Dalits. So it's very imperative that we acknowledge our own biases before we can start to really take steps to become better versions of who we are and ultimately anti-racist. The art for the month of March is quite simple. It focuses on the word Sikh, which means a disciple, a student of life. And I kind of took this into a classroom setting, which I get to work in a lot. And for those who are not familiar with the word Sikh, they might find it curious. Wow, you're a student of life, and do you get any degree for it? The month of April is very special for the Sikh calendar. It's the month of Vesak. It's the month when the 10th Master, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, initiated the Khalsa, the pure ones, the community. It really is an initiation for Sikhs to really start this journey towards merging with that Ik Onkar, the energy that permeates the entire universe, but at the same time be in the service of humanity. It ultimately is one of the most diversity, inclusion, equity-based event that happened in 1699, where Guru Gobind Singh Ji put out a call, and 5 individuals from radically different backgrounds and speaking different languages came together to become Singhs and Kaurs. And it's amazing to imagine that how 5 of these individuals coming from very different backgrounds came together and communicated, but they did. And they started a movement and a community that to this day is a standard, a bar, a metric for us to initiate and start our journeys on the Sikh path. The art for the month of May is about hair. Hair has a special significance and place in the Sikh faith, and I'm not going to say much about this image. I want this to kind of sit here and let you wonder about what images and what thoughts might come as a response to this art. I have gone through phases of short hair and long hair, and I'm going to leave it at that. Sikh road signs in the month of June. It kind of these are signs. If you're driving by on a highway, you could see these as signs of the wonderful journey along the Sikh path, but also pitfalls along the Sikh path. Kirtan is hymns from the Sikh faith, poetry from the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, or spiritual guide, sung to ragas and music. That's the ultimate sort of way to connect to the power, the energy that permeates the universe, to uproot Maya, illusion, to merge with that Ik Onkar, Seva along the way, Seva being community service. But then you have caste as be beware. Caste is something that has divided Sikhs for a long time. It should not, but it has. And beware of Babas, many fake gurus who lead us astray. And then, of course, hold on to your turban, bumps ahead. A little bit of humor there. The month of July, Independence Day here in America. And this slogan we've been hearing a lot for the past 4 years, Make America Great Again. And honestly, what makes America great is its incredible sheer diversity of thought, background, and people who come from all over the globe. It's a land of immigrants. And what makes America greater is that diversity. It is not about going back. It's about moving forward. And so be proud of all your languages that you speak besides English. The month of August is a set of business cards inspired by this amazing Punjabi tradition that a lot of Sikhs hail from, and it's a tradition of nicknames. Punjabi nicknames are incredible. It's humorous. Many of them don't make any sense. Some do. But I just have always found them to be really smile-inducing. And so I create these sort of fake business cards, but inspired by real Punjabi nicknames. The month of September is a smartphone app, and that app focuses on the 5 thieves, the 5 vices that we hear a ton in the Sikh faith, and this journey we have towards merging with the force, the Ik Onkar, the energy that permeates the universe. It's sort of the struggle with these 5 vices that we all have, the anger, lust, and greed, and attachment, and ego, and how you sort of overcome those along your way to merge with the divine, if you may. The month of October is a conversation a little girl is having with her grandpa, and this kind of, I was thinking about gender equality or lack thereof in the Sikh community. Our gurus emancipated women well before Europe did. Yet we struggle at times to give equality to women and talk about gender issues before getting too defensive about it. And so we should be open to question, and we should not tell the little ones, why are you asking this question? That's not a good question. There is no such thing as not a good question. We need to be able to answer and reason when it comes to difficult questions, and we should focus on that golden standard of giving equality to all sexes, men, women, and all kinds of other genders that we have in our midst today. If you look at Sikh history in terms of years, one year that really stands out and will stand out as a pivotal, path-breaking year is the year 1984. In that year, in the month of June and November, the Indian state, through its many apparatuses and tools, attacked the Sikh community, its bodies, physical bodies, physical architecture of gurdwaras, and many other businesses and homes, and thousands perished due to a lot of complicated political factors and struggles. I survived through both of them. I was in Punjab in June when the attacks happened on gurdwaras, and I was in the capital city of Delhi when mobs formed in response to the killing of the Prime Minister at the time, Indira Gandhi, and we were lucky we survived, but many did not. And this is a year that has changed the course of Sikh history and will do so for the future as well, and we don't realize it in many ways. And I wrote this poem as a reflection back on this year, keeping in mind that what drives us in response to this grave injustice is compassion, justice, and humility. And the last art on this calendar for the month of December is focusing on art. I'm an artist, and I feel in many ways as much thankful as I am to Sikh Lens for supporting Sikh arts. There are not a lot of Sikh institutions and communities within our own community that support, nurture, and create foundations for Sikh artists to flourish. And we're so used to free Sikh art, but at the end of the day, we consume a lot of art. We don't produce a lot of art. And that's our irony. We talk about how people don't know who we are, but we don't like to produce art. We don't like to support. We don't like to support by spending our resources to create institutions to support art. So I hope in the very near future, we'll produce artists as professionals whose full-time jobs are to be writers, painters, filmmakers, and many others. Last but not the least is a piece of art I created in commemoration of frontline workers who in the year 2020 with COVID-19 pandemic have put their life on the line so we can take for granted things that we need for our existence, medical care and food, keep getting supplied to us from farmers to truck drivers to medical workers, transit workers, grocery workers, emergency personnel, delivery workers, pharmacists. Thank you to all of you and others who have tried to maintain a certain semblance of normalcy amongst this global pandemic. This series you're going to see now is a little bit of a change from the cartoon illustration that I showed you. I created a cartoon many years ago, which was an illustration of a Captain America inspired by the first Captain America movie in 2011. And I had this vision that Captain America should have a turban and beard, and that Captain America fights hate and intolerance. And that illustration took a life of its own. A photographer based in New York City at the time, Fiona Abood, convinced me, it took her a year, convinced me to don that uniform myself and walk out on the streets of New York to push people's perceptions of what it means to be American. And so this is me in Central Park. And this was an 8-9 hour outing, and it really changed the course of my life. It was an amazing day, which had experiences that I just cannot fathom until that point ever having. This is me at my home cleaning one of my shields. I have a few shields. This is a shield that was gifted to me by my wife. It's a metal shield, so it's pretty heavy. It's like 14 pounds. But it's really one of my special shields that I use for special photo shoots. This is me in front of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., in the nation's capital. And I was doing a series inspired by Black Lives Matter, and I'm holding a banner, which is a quote from one of the premier scholars on race in America, Ibram Kendi. And it's really talking about prejudices we all have and the foundations of our this amazing nation, but foundations based on slavery. So it's just really that reflection all of us having, hey, you know what, we all are part of this problem, but we're also part of the solution. This is me at a rally in Cleveland, Ohio. Year is 2016, and this is in the summer. when the Republican National Convention was happening. And I'm holding a sign, Love Trumps Hate. And there were many rallies that happened across the nation at this time of the year, and I really felt it was necessary for me to be part of this movement at the time. This is me in Washington, D.C. The year is 2017, month is January, so this is the inauguration of the 45th President of the United States, and I'm holding a banner, and it's kind of a spoof off the whole Make America Great Again, but talking about how we all, our shared diversity, is what makes America great. This is me at a Memorial Day parade in New York City. It's one of the long traditions of parades that happen in New York City, and I, along with a Dutch photographer, decided one year to go and uninvited become part of this parade. It was quite a special experience. This is me on the set of a comedy show on FX called Totally Biased with Kamau Bell, and one of the anchors was Hari Kondabolu, who's a New York-based stand-up comedian, an amazing thinker and comedian. And this is some of the people who were working on that show, who dressed up as superheroes from the comic world. So this is quite a amazing experience, and a funny experience at that as well. When I did that first photo shoot in June 2013, one of the most amazing experiences on that day was me and Fiona running into this fire department truck in Central Park in New York City. And Fiona asked them, "Hey, can we have your truck for a few minutes so we can take some photos?" And amazingly, these fire department officials said, "Yes, you can have our truck." 4 of them were in the truck. They left it. They let me have the truck all by myself, and I was pretending I was driving and jumping in and out of it. That was the power I had that day, just by wearing this uniform of Captain America for that day, even in my turban and beard, and just kind of changing the narrative and getting these fire department officials giving me a truck that, you can try this. I don't think you would get fire department officials to say yes to you, but I had that special power because I was donning that uniform that you see. This is me, again, back in Jan 2017. In the background is the nation's capital, the seat of political power, and me holding the banner reminding everyone in America, we all, in our incredible diversity, make America the special place that it is. This is me at Women's March in Jan 2017, almost 1 million people who showed up for women's rights, for celebrating women, and I'm here with these 2 young girls, future leaders, and just saying thanks to the women, to the superheroes in our lives who bring us into this planet, who raise us, and who are perhaps the strongest of human beings on this planet. Definitely more stronger than men. That is in my humble opinion. So thank you to all the women out there who make life possible. This is me with a fellow Captain America at the New York City Comic Con 4 years ago in 2016. And we had crossed our path a few times, and I was there in my uniform and with a very sort of important message in October 2016 of getting out and voting. So that was how our paths crossed, and a reminder that Captain America's come in all kinds of colors and hues. This is me back at the Women's March in Jan 2017. 5 ladies I ran into, and we decided to take this photo, and it's a reminder they're all wearing these straps that have rights we take for granted mentioned on them, but these are rights that many had to fight for us to enjoy them today. Human rights, sanctuary, the right to protest, to dissent, and reproductive rights. And it's important for us to know that the amazing, great place that America is, it became that way through a lot of peaceful struggle on part of many, many, many Americans. So be thankful, be active, be engaged politically and civically. Enjoy these rights, but know that these rights were fought for over dozens, at times hundreds of years. And be in gratitude, but stay active and educate yourself about your history. Thank you very much. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.